The Emerald Tablet, Chapter 3. The Kiosk Checks in Benjamin. Benjamin wondered if his atoms had been scrambled. He hadn't felt like they had, but really he had nothing to compare it to. The teleportation was pretty much instantaneous, and when the world around him immediately returned, he found himself back in normal surroundings. Well, sort of normal. He stood on a platform in an atrium the size of a football field underneath a dome ceiling. Mammoth columns held up the dome, and people mobbed the place. Benjamin stared, but forced himself to blink once he felt his eyes get all dry and glassy. A voice to his left snapped Benjamin out of his stupor. "Welcome, Benjamin Holt. Step off the platform to your left." Benjamin turned to look. An old man with ears the size of oversized monarch butterflies stared back. "How do you know my name?" Benjamin asked, but wondered why he did. Maybe the better question to ask would be, "What world am I on?" "We've been expecting you, of course, and you arrived exactly on time, which is quite an accomplishment. Not everyone does, you know, and then things really get messed up. We have to shut down the whole platform waiting for them. Once there was a student who was nearly 5 hours late. Can you imagine? And another time 3 platforms stalled at once." The man shook his head and his ears flapped back and forth. "But hurry down, the next student is scheduled to arrive any minute now." "Where do I go?" Benjamin asked the man as he exited the platform. The old man pointed to his ears. "Listen for instructions," he said, "and goodbye." He turned his back on Benjamin and welcomed the next kid, who'd just arrived where Benjamin had been standing. Benjamin has no idea if he should walk left or right, or if it really mattered. "Welcome to summer school. Please report to a kiosk for your homeroom assignment," a female voice said over an intercom. After standing frozen for the better part of a minute, trying to figure out what was going on, Benjamin came to the conclusion that the kiosks were actually the columns. It was the lines of kids queued up to them that finally gave it away. He made his way to the nearest column and stood there for close to 15 minutes. Hopefully summer school wouldn't just be a lot of waiting in lines. Finally, though, his turn arrived. "Name, please," a female voice said. "Benjamin Holt," he replied, leaning his mouth close to the kiosk disc. "Thank you, Benjamin Holt. Date of birth, please," the voice requested. "June 21st. "Thank you, Benjamin Holt," the voice said. "Please place your hand palm down on the disc in front of you." Benjamin had barely placed his right hand palm down when the kiosk lit up, sending a small shock through his body as it did so. He jumped back and yanked his hand away. "Thank you, Benjamin Holt. DNA match confirmed. Welcome to summer school. Your home room will be down primary hallway number 0, secondary hallway number 7, tertiary hallway number 1, and will be in classroom number 3. "DNA match? How do you know my DNA?" Benjamin asked, but the kiosk had already reset. "Name, please," it kept repeating. "Where is primary hallway number 0? Benjamin muttered. He walked around the atrium looking for a sign. The first hallway he saw had a large number 5 above it. This was good. Benjamin kept going and passed hallways until they looped back around to 0. As he passed through the threshold, a female voice he now recognized spoke. "If you wish to deposit your luggage into a luggage terminal, it will be delivered to your dormitory." Actually, that didn't sound too bad. As heavy as his duffel bag was, he figured maybe his parents had packed rocks in it. He moved to a terminal currently in use by a blonde girl. The girl stared at her oversized suitcase on the floor, which suddenly began to levitate, wobbling violently as it did so. Reaching the inside of the large recess, it fell with a resounding thud. She turned, saw Benjamin, flushed red, and then hurried away down the hall. Benjamin smoothly levitated his own bag inside the terminal and started down the long hallway ahead. But apparently not everyone trusted the luggage terminal. Up ahead, a skinny black kid walked down the hall, dragging behind him a duffel bag even bigger than he was. "I can help you if you want," Benjamin offered, walking over to him. "By the way, I'm Benjamin Holt. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to make a friend here." "Gary Goodweather." The boy extended his hand, and Benjamin shook it. "What homeroom are you headed to?" Benjamin asked. 0713, Gary answered. "Me too," Benjamin replied, easily picking up on the lingo. "We could take turns carrying your bag until we get there." Gary shrugged. "As long as you don't mind." "I don't mind." Benjamin hefted the bag onto his right shoulder. Wow, what do you have in here anyway? Oh, you know, just the basic stuff anyone would need. Clothes, shoes, my chess set, books. Books? No wonder it's so heavy. Why'd you pack books? Benjamin asked. I haven't read them yet, and this summer school thing came along so fast I barely had time to throw them into my bag before it was time to go, Gary answered. Anyway, I really like to read and reread the actual books. I always get more and more out of them each time I go through them. You know what I mean? Not really, Benjamin answered. He'd have just memorized them and been done with it. Out of the corner of his eye, something green caught Benjamin's attention. He turned to look, but all he saw was an empty bench. It must have been his imagination. After the morning he'd been having, everything could have been his imagination. Without hardly thinking about it, he pinched himself again. Still not a dream. They turned left down the tertiary hallway, number 1. Again he caught sight of something green, but when he looked he saw another empty bench. Great! Now there was some fast imaginary green thing following him. About halfway down the hall there were 4 large doors stretching to the ceiling. Benjamin and Gary saw the one marked with the 3 and walked in. As soon as they were in the classroom, Benjamin dropped Gary's duffel bag from his shoulder. It landed on the foot of the blonde girl Benjamin had seen at the luggage terminal. Ouch! What'd you do that for? For a second Benjamin thought she was going to punch him, but instead she started rubbing her foot. Oh, I didn't even see, Benjamin began. Hey, be careful with that. The chess set is my favorite, and it's kind of fragile, Gary said to Benjamin. Oh, sorry, it was just really getting heavy, Benjamin replied. He turned to the girl. Sorry, I didn't see you standing there. I just couldn't carry that thing anymore. He packed books in it, Benjamin said, motioning his head toward Gary. Well, you never know when they might come in handy, Gary said. Yeah, well, just be careful next time you drop something, the girl said, still nursing her foot. You're one to talk about dropping stuff, Benjamin replied, referring to her suitcase at the luggage terminal. The girl flushed red, obviously getting the reference. I didn't see you using telekinesis on that duffel bag, she said. She whirled around, her blonde hair turned bright flaming red, and she stomped away. Did you see that? Benjamin asked Gary. Did you see her hair? It just changed color, I swear it did. Yeah, I saw too, Gary said. That's a little weird, don't you think? Benjamin said. Well, I don't think you should say anything. You already made a bad impression, Gary said. Hey, Benjamin! Benjamin grinned from ear to ear when he heard Andy's voice. Andy hurried over. I was wondering when you were going to show up. Nearly every head in the room turned to look when Andy called out to Benjamin. Apparently not everyone here had a best friend along. Benjamin noticed the blonde, actually now the red-headed girl, had also turned to look. Pretending she wasn't watching, she started talking to another girl nearby. Andy, what's up with this summer school thing? When I got the call this morning, or whatever it was, I couldn't believe it. Benjamin looked curious. And do you have a teleporter in your hallway? Unfortunately, ours is in my sister's closet, Andy said. How long have you been here? Benjamin asked. For at least 2 hours. I was the second person here. It was just me and that girl over there for like a half hour. He motioned over to the brunette girl, now engaged in conversation with the blonde, red-headed girl. But then more people started to filter in. Andy turned to Gary, seeing him for the first time. I'm Andy Grow, by the way. Gary Goodweather, Gary answered, extending his hand, which Andy shook. Gary insisted on bringing his duffel bag with him rather than leaving it in the luggage terminal. He packed books in it, Benjamin laughed. Why didn't you just memorize them? Andy asked. Well, Gary began. The brunette girl had made her way over to Andy with the now blonde again girl in tow. Hi, Andy, she said. Oh, hi, Iva, Andy replied. Benjamin noticed Andy was staring at the girl. Not that he could really blame Andy. She was beautiful. Her dark hair was long and straight and reached well past her shoulders. Her light brown eyes lit up her face, and apparently Andy's also. When Iva turned to Benjamin and Gary, Benjamin felt his face heat up. Hi, she said. I'm Iva Marinina, and this is Heidi Dillon. She motioned to the blonde girl. Benjamin glanced to Heidi, but felt his eyes being drawn back to Iva. He looked down at his shoes, then back at Heidi, hoping Andy hadn't noticed his reaction. Heidi gave Andy a big smile, though Andy's eyes were still glued on Iva. She then turned to Benjamin and Gary, barely smiling as she rubbed her foot. You're rubbing the wrong foot, Benjamin said. Heidi smirked. but then put her foot down. Sympathy pain, she said. Yeah, whatever, he said. I'm Benjamin Holt. And then he put on his best smile. No need to make enemies the first day, even if she was making more of the foot thing than was necessary. Gary Goodweather. Gary put out his hand to greet them. They both giggled when they shook his hand and returned. Did your hair change color a minute ago, or was that my imagination? Benjamin asked Heidi. Gary elbowed Benjamin in the side. Well, I know it did, Benjamin defended himself. Heidi reached up and smoothed her hair. Oh, yeah, it does that sometimes when my emotions flare up. That's pretty cool, Iva said. You mean you can have any hair color you want? Well, not really, Heidi answered. It's changed color like that ever since I was about 5, but I still haven't figured out how to control it. I always have to wear a hat in public, she shrugged. So you and Benjamin know each other? Iva asked Andy. Yeah, we've lived next door to each other our whole lives, Andy replied. It was at that moment the large entryway door closed with a suctioning sound. Everyone turned to look. Welcome to summer school, the voice of Proteus Ajax sounded from the front of the room. Everyone's eyes locked on the man who had just appeared behind the teacher's desk. My name is Proteus Ajax, and I believe I've had the pleasure of already meeting all of you wonderful Year 1 denarians. What's a denarian? Andy whispered. A person between 10 and 20, Gary replied. Haven't you read the dictionary? Are you kidding? Andy answered. Please take a seat. We'll get our business out of the way and then break for the day, Proteus Ajax instructed. There wasn't a great rush for the desks, but eventually everyone sat down. Heidi and Iva sat in the front row, and Benjamin, Andy, and Gary went to sit in the 3 seats just behind them. Just as Benjamin was about to sit down, the green thing returned and vanished. But this time he was sure of it. There had been something there. But what in the world is green and fast and can disappear into thin air? He looked under the desk, the chair, but saw nothing. As he stood back up, he realized he was the only student still standing. Every face in the room stared back at him. Oh, I just thought I saw something, green on my chair, and then it wasn't there. And, I thought maybe it was under the desk or something. Benjamin's face heated up as Heidi and Iva looked at him like he was a total idiot. Yes, well, please go ahead and sit down, Benjamin Holt, is it? Proteus Ajax said. Benjamin nodded and quickly sat down. You thought you saw something green? Andy whispered. Do you realize how stupid that sounds? I think I have an idea, Benjamin muttered under his breath. Nothing like drawing attention to yourself on the first day, Andy replied.